It's 3 in the morning. You're in a balcony cabin somewhere off the coast of Cozumel, and you wake up because something is wrong. Your stomach is doing a slow, deliberate flip. Your mouth tastes like a penny. The air conditioning is humming, and your partner is asleep, and the ship is moving in that gentle, almost unnoticeable way it moves at night. You sit up in the dark, and you have that very specific, full-body thought every cruiser eventually meets, which is, oh no. So now you have a decision to make. You can ride it out and hope it's the shrimp, you can stagger to the bathroom and gamble on a sip of water, or you can pick up the phone next to the bed and call medical. Most people in this exact moment do not realize they are making a price decision, but they are. Calling at 3 in the morning gets you the after-hours rate, which is roughly $300 to $600 just for the doctor to come see you before anybody touches a thermometer. Waiting until the medical center opens its walk-in hours in the morning gets you something closer to $100 to $200. The cruise has already run a play on you. You just haven't seen it yet. Let's say you wait. The sun comes up, you feel worse, and you walk down to deck 2. The medical center is almost always on one of the lowest passenger decks near the waterline. There's a reason for that. It's the most stable part of the ship, which matters when you're trying to draw blood or read an X-ray on something that is technically in motion. There's a small waiting area with a few chairs. A nurse takes your card and asks you to fill out a form. You hand over your C-Pass. The nurse takes your vitals. The doctor sees you. And here, in the most ordinary stretch of the whole experience, is the first thing that almost no passenger walks in expecting. Your assumption when you came down the elevator was that this is the cruise line's clinic, and this is the cruise line's doctor, and this whole thing will work roughly the way a hotel handles a guest with a fever. It does not. The physician treating you is an independent contractor. So is the nurse. They work to a set of voluntary medical guidelines published by the American College of Emergency Physicians, basically a recommended playbook that good cruise medical centers operate to. And they are running what is structurally a small private urgent care clinic that happens to float. The bill posts to your onboard folio in real time, same folio that runs the casino, the drinks package, the specialty restaurant. There is no insurance card to hand over. Your home health insurance, if you have it, is almost certainly out of network. You will pay the bill before you disembark, and then you will go home and try to claw some of it back through the upfront and reimburse dance, which is exactly as fun as it sounds. For about 80% of cases, this is where the story ends. You get the exam, maybe a bag of IV fluids, an antiemetic, a couple of pills, instructions to hydrate. The line items add up to somewhere between $350 and $1,500 by the time the receipt prints. You go back to your cabin, you sleep, you make the second seating for dinner. Unless your symptoms hit a specific definition, and here's where the script flips on you. If what you've got is 3 or more loose stools inside 24 hours, or vomiting paired with one of a short list of other symptoms, cramps, headache, muscle aches, fever, you are no longer a sick passenger. You are now what the medical center calls an AGE case, acute gastroenteritis, and you've just been entered into something called the GI log. That log is reportable. The Centers for Sane Sanitation Program, basically the cruise-specific public health office, requires the ship to flag cases on every voyage that touches a U.S. port. Once 2% of the people on board are sick, the ship has to file additional reports. At 3%, it's officially an outbreak and gets posted on the CDC website with the ship's name on it. You are not going back to the buffet. You are going back to your cabin under isolation for a minimum of 24 hours after your symptoms stop. Room service only, a specific tray protocol, no casino, no theater, no shore excursion at the next port. The hallway outside your cabin gets a different cleaning rotation. And somewhere on a server, your cabin number is now on a list the bridge can see. And while you're sitting in there watching reruns of a cooking show on the in-cabin TV, something quiet is happening that most cruisers never notice, because most cruisers are never the case the system is watching. Your cabin steward, the person you have been tipping for towel animals, has shifted roles. The steward is the first link in what the industry calls the welfare check chain. Steward escalates to guest services, Guest services escalates to medical, medical escalates to the bridge. If the tray outside your door is untouched at the next pickup, somebody is knocking. If the do not disturb sign hasn't moved in a day, somebody is knocking harder. The cabin steward is not just a service role. The cabin steward is a sensor. It's a small, very deliberate piece of operational design. The housekeeping job and the welfare check job folded into the same uniform, riding the same hallway, walking past the same doors every morning. You only see the towel animal. The other half of the role is invisible until you become the cabin the system is paying attention to. Which raises a question you're already asking, which is, what about the person sleeping in the other bed? Your cabin mate, your spouse, your kids, under VSP-aligned protocols, immediate cabin contacts get asked to restrict movement during the active symptom window too, because shared cabins are documented transmission vectors, which is the polite way of saying one bad shrimp can quietly take an entire family off the cruise for a day and a half. The isolation isn't just for you. And while this feels from inside the cabin like a uniquely terrible thing happening to you specifically, the scale of it is the part that reframes everything. The Cruise Lines International Association has cited an estimate that roughly 1 in 14 passengers visits the medical center during their voyage. On a 4,000-guest megaship, that's something like 280 visits per cruise. It is not unusual. It is not a crisis. It is the daily rhythm of the operation, running quietly 2 decks below the main pool, every single day, on every single ship. What you've experienced so far is the standard path. Most stories stop here, but the ship's medical center is also designed for the harder branch, the chest pain at 2 a.m., the appendix that picks the wrong day, the fall on a wet staircase. So let's follow that one. The doctor stabilizes you on board. The medical center has more than people realize: an X-ray machine, basic lab equipment, defibrillators, oxygen, IV pumps, a small infirmary with a couple of beds, real capability, but also real ceilings. A ship clinic can hold the line. It cannot do surgery. It cannot do cardiology. It cannot keep a critically ill patient indefinitely. So a recommendation goes upstairs. And here is the second thing about this scenario that almost nobody walks in knowing. The doctor doesn't decide what happens next. The captain does. The doctor recommends, the captain authorizes. Diversion to a closer port, a request to the U.S. Coast Guard for a helicopter, holding position for an evacuation, those are bridge calls. While you are on a bed downstairs, the bridge is pulling up charts, calculating fuel burn against detour distance, requesting permission from the closest port authority, checking the weather window for a hover, talking to the company's shoreside medical team on the phone. The medical center is treating you. The bridge is solving a logistics problem with you in it. If you're holding for the next port, the infirmary stay runs roughly $1,000 to $3,000 per day on the folio, itemized line by line, the bag of saline, the monitor, the hours. If the call goes the other way and a helicopter is coming, the math changes shape entirely. A medevac from a cruise ship runs anywhere from $50,000 to $250,000 or more, depending on how far you are from the nearest helipad-equipped hospital, the weather, the complexity of the lift. If you're offloaded at a foreign port, you are now walking into a hospital that wants payment up front in a country's healthcare system you don't know, often before they will release your records to anybody. And then there's the flight home, which is frequently another 5-figure number with a medical escort attached. Comprehensive cruise travel insurance, the kind sold by third-party insurers, not the slim cruise line branded version with the lower cops, typically costs about 4 to 10% of the trip price, and the line item that justifies the entire policy is medical evacuation coverage. The recommended floor for cruises is $100,000 in emergency medical and $250,000 in evacuation. Cruise line branded vacation protection plans often cap evacuation far lower, sometimes around $50,000, which is below what a real helicopter lift can run.
There's also a small deadline buried in most policies, a pre-existing condition waiver which keeps your managed diabetes or your blood pressure medication from disqualifying a future claim, generally has to be purchased within 14 to 21 days of the initial trip deposit. Miss that window and a flare-up of something you've been managing for a decade becomes a denied claim. The helicopter is the moment a $200 policy looks like the most rational $200 a passenger ever spent. Which lands you on the other obvious question, which is, what happens to my cruise? The answer is direct. The ship sails. Your cruise continues without you. You are now a private medical case in a foreign country on your own dime, unless a travel insurance policy is picking up the tab. Trip interruption coverage is what reimburses your unused cruise days and helps coordinate getting you home. The cruise line's contract is to deliver the voyage. Once you're on the gurney heading down the gangway, the ship's obligation to you has more or less ended. Pullback and the routine scope of all this is what's actually striking. On any given week, the major cruise lines collectively run hundreds of GI cases through their medical centers, dozens of infirmary admissions, and a small handful of medevacs at sea, in port, mid-ocean, as a matter of standard operations. None of it makes the news. Most of it doesn't even make the daily ship newsletter slid under your door. The choreography you just walked through is happening on dozens of ships right now, somewhere in the world, while their pools are full and their atriums are doing the afternoon trivia. So next cruise, when you walk past Deck 2 and you see the small medical center sign, you'll know exactly what's behind that door. The independent contractor doctor, the folio printer, the GI log, the phone line to the bridge, the helipad 3 decks up, the cabin steward with the welfare check radio on a different channel than the towel animals. There's a reason people who've been cruising for decades click yes on the insurance line at checkout without thinking about it. Now you know what they're actually buying. It's not a clinic. It's the visible front edge of an operation that's been running this exact play quietly for 50 years.
That's another one for the cruise files. If you want to learn more about what goes on behind the giant cruise ships, everything from the scams on board to the secrets below deck, subscribe, like, and share. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.